Story: Flames of Desperation. The house, a worn, modest structure nestled in the shadow of towering smokestacks, blended into the grim suburban sprawl that marked Doskvol's poorer districts. Its cracked stone walls and grimy windows were no different from the countless other homes along the narrow, cobblestone streets. Inside, the members of the Crows had settled into the routine of post-heist life. They had sold most of the loot from the last mission, enough to fill their pockets and keep their operation running, at least for now. Downstairs in the hidden basement, Jack paced through the underground hospital they had painstakingly set up beneath the house. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, and the dim gaslights flickered overhead. Dr. Lazarus Finch, a lean, older man with graying hair, leaned over a patient on one of the cots, while his assistant Dr. Michigan worked nearby, a strange smile on his face as he hummed to himself. Jack glanced over at them. "We're running low on supplies, Doc," Jack said, his voice tight with worry. "If we don't start pulling in more coins, we won't be able to keep this place running. And I don't want any of our patients dying because we can't afford enough bandages or electroplasm." Lazarus didn't look up from his work, his tone calm. "We'll manage, Jack. Always do. People in this city don't stop getting sick or hurt." Dr. Michigan chuckled softly, eyes glinting as he fiddled with a syringe. "Besides, Jack, you'd be surprised what you can improvise with, if you know where to look." Upstairs, Harlequina was in her small workout room, the sound of her fists connecting with a punching bag echoing through the cramped house. Her muscles tensed with every strike, her breath coming in focused bursts. She paused, wiping sweat from her brow, her eyes narrowing. "This city's getting worse," she muttered to herself. "Sooner or later, we're gonna hit something bigger than we can handle. I need to get stronger. Can't let anyone take us down." In his own cluttered room, Harry Potter sat hunched over a tattered spellbook, the dim light casting shadows across his face. He muttered an incantation under his breath, but the words faltered, and the pages barely reacted. He sighed in frustration, running a hand through his messy hair. "I'm still not strong enough. I should be able to do more. They're counting on me, and I'm holding us back." His heart raced as he stared at the text, desperate to unlock the magic within it. Meanwhile, Rabbit Foot sat at his makeshift desk in a corner of the living room, papers scattered before him. He was supposed to be working on the ledgers, keeping track of their finances and upcoming jobs, but instead, his attention kept drifting to the small, scruffy cat that had wandered in and curled up by his feet. He smiled, absently scratching the cat behind the ears. "Well, it could be worse, huh?" he muttered to the feline. "Luck's been on our side so far. Just gotta trust it'll keep rolling that way." The quiet was suddenly shattered by a deafening explosion outside. The entire house shook, dust falling from the ceiling as the sound reverberated through the walls. Jack froze mid-step, his heart lurching. "What the hell was that?" he growled, rushing toward the stairs. Harlequina burst out of her room, fists clenched, eyes scanning the windows. "An attack? Someone found us?" Harry's hands trembled as he grabbed his wand, his thoughts racing. That sounded close, too close. Rabbit Foot stood slowly, his usual calm demeanor flickering for just a moment as the explosion reverberated through his bones. "Stay cool. Whatever it is, we'll handle it." The group rushed to the front door, throwing it open just as the two enforcers Rabbit had hired stormed past, weapons drawn, ready to face whatever threat awaited outside. The street was filled with the acrid smell of smoke, and 2 houses down, a bin was engulfed in flames, the remnants of the explosion still smoldering. Sitting beside the burning wreckage was a small figure, a boy, barely older than 12. His clothes were torn, and blood dripped down his face, mixing with the grime and soot. He looked up and down the street, eyes wide with terror, searching desperately for something, or someone. "It's Cuzão," Rabbit whispered under his breath, recognizing the boy immediately. He'd run into him before. A street kid, tough, but scared out of his wits. And now, by the look of him, in serious trouble. Jack stepped forward cautiously, his eyes never leaving the boy sitting next to the smoldering bin. Cuzão? What the hell are you doing here? Jack's voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge of confusion. Cuzão looked up, and the instant recognition flared in his wide, frantic eyes. Jack. Jack. Thank the gods it's you. His words spilled out in a chaotic rush, barely giving Jack time to process. I didn't know where you lived. I had to do something. I needed to get your attention. We're under attack, Jack. My crew, Ulf Ironborn, all of us, there. He struggled for breath, his face pale, streaked with grime and blood. They've got these guns that shoot fire. Fire. They're burning everything. Harlequina, who had moved to Jack's side, exchanged a baffled glance with him. Guns that shoot fire, she repeated, incredulous. What are you talking about, kid? Cuzão barely heard her, his words flowing like a torrent. I barely made it out. They're killing my friends, all of them. I thought I was dead, but I ran as fast as I could to find you. I don't know who else to ask. You've gotta help us. Please. Jack's brow furrowed. Slow down, kid. Who's attacking you? Who's got these fire guns? Cuzão shook his head violently, his voice rising in panic. I don't know. I don't know. Just men with masks and these guns. Ulf's still there, they're all there. If you don't help us now, they're gonna die. Rabbitfoot knelt down, his voice soft and soothing. Hey, slow down, alright? We're gonna figure this out. Just breathe for a second. He reached out a hand, but Cuzão pulled back, trembling. We're not going anywhere just yet. Let's talk this through. Harry, standing just behind Rabbit, muttered dryly, blowing up a bin to get our attention? Bit overkill, don't you think? Cuzão ignored the comment, his chest heaving. There's no time for talking. You don't understand. They're going to die if you don't help right now. The crows exchanged uneasy looks. This was bigger than they had anticipated. If Ulf Ironborn was involved, this was serious trouble, but the desperation in the boy's voice made it clear that this wasn't some minor scuffle. Jack looked at Harlequina, her fists still clenched, then back at Cuzão. We need more details, kid. Who are these guys? How many? We're not walking into a death trap. I don't know. Cuzão practically screamed, his voice cracking. I don't know how many. But they've got fire guns. That's all I know. If you won't come, I'll find someone who will. His voice was shaking with emotion, but there was a steely resolve in his eyes now. He stood, wiping at the blood on his face. But I won't leave them to die. Cuzão turned, walking a few steps away, before spinning back to face the crows, his face twisted with desperation. Please, if you don't come with me now, I'll find someone who will, even if it kills me. The boy's words hung in the air, the smoke from the explosion curling lazily into the night sky. Jack looked at the others, unsure. Harlequina's face was hard, but her eyes flickered with uncertainty. Rabbit stood, frowning, his mind already working through the risks. At the Iron Den. Cuzão had always been quick with his feet, quick with his thoughts, and, most importantly, quick to run when things turned bad. And this time was no different. He was at the Iron Den, their base tucked away in the old orphanage, when it all started. It was subtle at first, the faint smell of smoke, the crackle of something burning. His sharp senses caught it before anyone else. At first, he thought maybe someone had messed up the cooking fire. But as the smoke thickened, and that crackling turned into the roar of flames, he felt it in his gut, something was very, very wrong. A window shattered near the hall where they kept their weapons. He spun around just in time to see men breaking in, wielding strange guns that shot jets of fire, setting the place ablaze. Some of them were wearing heavy, fire-retardant clothes. His pulse skyrocketed. He didn't know who they were, but they were here to destroy them, and they were doing it fast. The Ironborn scattered, some trying to fight, others just trying to survive. Cuzao's heart pounded as the fire spread, swallowing everything it touched. He darted through the corridors of the orphanage, his small frame slipping between panicked gang members. His mind raced, searching for a way out. He thought of Ulf Ironborn, trying to rally the others. He thought of Didenho, probably already armed and ready, but what chance did they have? Then there was Boquinha, always so clever, and the twins, Luis and Nico, only 3 years old. They couldn't survive this. He felt the heat behind him, flames licking at his back as one of the masked men shot a blast of fire from his gun. Cuzão barely managed to throw himself into a side corridor, hitting the ground hard. For a second, he couldn't move. The smoke burned his throat, his lungs screamed for air, and his heart pounded so hard he thought it might explode. This was it, he thought. This is where it ends. But then his brain kicked into survival mode. The crows. He and Didenho had run with them before. Jack had even saved his life after the balloon race when Cuzão had fallen, badly hurt, and been taken to their secret underground medical facility. Dr. Finch had treated him, the only doctor who had ever made him laugh while patching him up. The crows had to help again. They were his only chance. His body screamed in protest, but he forced himself to his feet. The flames were everywhere now, the smoke thicker by the second. He stumbled through the chaos, reaching the hidden passage that only the Ironborn knew. It was their escape tunnel, their lifeline. He shoved his way in, running blind through the narrow darkness, feeling his way by instinct until the cool night air finally hit his face. He was out. But there was no time to waste. He bolted through the maze of back alleys, his legs burning, his chest tight from the smoke. His mind was fixed on one thing, finding the crows. He had to, for Ulf, for Didenho, for Boquinha, for the twins, for all of them. He reached the street where the crow's underground base was hidden, but panic hit him like a punch to the gut. Which house? He'd only been here once before. His memories blurred by pain and adrenaline, he couldn't remember. Time was running out. He had to do something. He had to make them come to him. Pulling out 2 grenades from his belt, he yanked the pins and tossed them into a nearby trash bin. The explosion rocked the street, fire and debris scattering everywhere. People poured out of their houses, shouting, confused. But Cuzão was already scanning the faces, searching. Then, he saw him, Jack. Relief surged through him. He sprinted toward Jack, nearly collapsing at his feet. Jack. Jack. Thank the gods, it's you, he gasped, the words rushing out in a panicked flood. I didn't know where you lived, I had to do something to get your attention. We're under attack, Jack. My crew, Ulf, Didenho, Boquinha, the twins. They're all still there. Jack's eyes narrowed, his gaze sharp. What are you talking about, kid? Slow down. They've got these guns that shoot fire. Cuzão practically screamed. They're burning everything. You've gotta help, Jack, they're going to die. Harlequina stepped up beside Jack, frowning. Guns that shoot fire? What are you talking about? But Cuzão didn't care about the skepticism in her voice. His friends were dying. He could hear their screams in his head, see the flames devouring everything. I barely made it out. They're killing my friends. Ulf, the twins, they're gonna die. I ran as fast as I could to find you. You have to help us. You're the only ones who can. Jack rubbed his chin, his eyes darkening. Who's attacking you? I don't know. Just men, masked, with those fire guns. I don't know how many. If you don't help, they're all going to die. Rabbitfoot knelt beside him, his voice calm. Hey, breathe, all right? We'll figure this out. Just take a second. But Cuzão shook his head, his voice trembling. There's no time. You don't understand. If you don't come now, they'll all be dead. I can't leave them there. I won't leave them. Harry, standing behind Rabbit, smirked. Blowing up a bin to get our attention? A bit dramatic, don't you think? Cuzão ignored him, standing up shakily. Please, he whispered, his voice breaking. If you don't come with me now, I'll find someone who will. Even if it kills me. The smoke from the explosion still curled in the air as Cuzão met Jack's eyes, pleading. Jack glanced at Harlequina, who was frowning in thought, and then back at Rabbit Foot. This wasn't some street scuffle. This was life or death.